why trust is the number one connection killer. For those of you that kind of follow me for a while, you know what connection killers are. Connection killers are mindsets derived from the past, and that if they go unchecked, if you don't check these mindsets, if you don't overcome them, unfortunately, they're going to absolutely prevent the your ability to thrive in a connection, and they can also prevent connections from happening at all. Difficulty trusting is the number one connection killer because without vulnerability, without intimacy, there is no connection. There's no capability of connection. So for those of you that have unfortunately experienced emotionally unavailable men, they're just interested in one thing, and you can't never get them to commit, and talking about emotional things is so uncomfortable for them, right? How in the world can you really get into a loving, mutually, like, ooh, you're really be able to relax emotionally with that person if they're emotionally shut down? There's absolutely no possibility for it. So that is the reason why connection killer number one, like the most common one, is trust, and that's the one that I spent the most time working with women to overcome, because it's a doozy. It is, because as you can see by this illustration, how in the world can somebody access your heart if it's totally on lockdown? Let's talk about the risk of opening up, because one thing I'm not going to do, I am not going to belittle your experience. I'm not going to make it seem like, oh, oh, there's no risk. Oh, do it, open up. No, there's a reason why. There's a reason why you feel the way you feel. There's a reason why it's difficult to open up and trust people and let people see your personality and things like that, and wait until you feel comfortable. I know I've heard it a million times, and that's how I used to be. I need to feel comfortable before I show my personality, right? And I've just totally gone away with that. So yeah, there are risks of opening up. I mean, there are. There's risk of not being able to discern whether or not someone's genuine, whether or not you're on the same page. You can't, a lot of times it's very difficult, especially now, really seeing past whether or not somebody is wanting the same things you want and not just doing whatever they can do for however long they can do it. I've heard as much as years men pretend or have pretended to want something and then come to find out it really wasn't so. So I understand the risk. I'm not going to belittle that and make it seem like it doesn't exist. All right. I get it. Right. And that's another reason why it could contribute to the connections being very difficult to create. So another thing that comes up a lot is what if difficulty trusting is what my partner has and not necessarily me? Like, I trust blah, 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 but the partner or the guy that I'm dating has literally said, or you can just hear by the way that they talk about their ex, that they have a hard time trusting. The importance of it is first understand what your connection killers are. What are you working through? Because you can't really control somebody else's, right? All you can do is really guide them through it, maybe. But if you aren't looking at the speck in your own eye, then it can still make even if they're working on their connection killer and you're unfortunately not, then the connection won't thrive, right? It might spark, but then it will fizzle out. The goal, I guess, or the message here is to not be so concerned about what's going on with somebody else, especially if they're not your partner. It's best to focus on what is going on with you and what you can control. All right, so protection mode versus expression mode. That's pretty much one of the ways that I define and describe this particular connection killer, difficulty trusting. And there are 4 other connection killers that you can, get more information on, the more that that you like tune into any of my sessions. But we're focusing on trust because this is, like I mentioned several times, a really big one. Let me break down what I mean with protection versus expression. A lot of times, this is the key to how you define whether or not this is actually your connection killer. If your default, when triggered, like when you're in a situation where you feel like you might get exposed, or you might, you might have to tap into some really sensitive emotions and all this kind of stuff, or you might, put yourself in a situation where you risking humiliation or risking making a fool out of yourself or whatever it is, that the default way that you respond to that is protection. Oh, let me close up, let me hide, let me get defensive, let me just woo, get away, right? If it's that versus really expressing yourself, like really just saying whatever it is that's heavy on your heart, heavy on your mind, the root of what's really causing you anxiety or fear or discomfort. Okay, so that's a really good clue to see whether or not this is your connection killer. If you already are just like, no, whenever I'm triggered, I say exactly what's on my mind. I say exactly what's bothering me, and they gonna know about it and whatever, or if doesn't even have to be confrontational. It can just simply be if I'm feeling sad, if I want to cry, if I really, really feel like I want to cry, do you let yourself cry? Or or in the moments where you need help, like you're really like, oh my God, I need some help, I need something, is your immediate reaction to ask for help, or is it to act like everything's okay and not trust that somebody's willing to help you? So those are just quick indicators that can be helpful so that you'll know whether or not this is your connection killer, because whether we acknowledge it or not, it is still there. All right. When is it safe to trust someone with your heart? All right, so this is what we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about.